we doing today?
Reclaiming my time. I know they do care about that, but if they can't pay their rent and they can't feed their family, the rest of it is less important.
This may look like a routine disagreement inside a committee hearing, but it's actually a collision between two competing definitions of accountability. What's really being tested here is whether government power is measured by how well it protects abstract rights or by how effectively it responds to everyday economic pressure. This raises broader questions about what legitimacy looks like when institutions debate freedom while voters debate survival. In this video, we'll break down how this exchange exposes a deeper crisis in political priorities and why neither side can avoid the consequences.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Will the gentleman yield?
For a second, sure.
I was kidding. Go ahead.
I was really interested in what was about to happen.
You fooled me too, Brad.
Well, I was going to say, Mr. Chairman, thank you. And, I sit at the end of the dais. I'm the last Democrat here. And so, many questions and comments have already been made on this important topic, which is FISA. And I am absolutely for FISA reform. But, Mr. Chairman, when I think about FISA, you know what I really think about? I think about affordability. And the hoax of affordability, okay? Because, and perhaps someone should tell the president that every time he says affordability is a hoax, like another Democrat sprouts out of the ground and lands in the House of Representatives, and eventually we'll get a gavel. And if he doesn't like saying affordability, that's fine. We can come up with another word. If he doesn't want to say that things are unaffordable, we could just say things are expensive. We could agree to just say that instead. We could just say things are expensive instead of unaffordable. I really want to talk to the person who puts the words into the teleprompter, because this is like a Ron Burgundy situation. Every time he says affordability is a hoax,
Will the gentleman yield?
In a second, let me do this and then I will yield. But every time he says affordability is a hoax, it's like saying go F yourself San Diego, okay? Or is it San Diego? Scholars say the translation was lost long ago. There's no partisanship on the grocery store bill. I know what you're saying, Jared. Be honest, tell the other side of the coin, okay, gasoline prices are down, right? See, I'm being fair. Gasoline prices are down, and that's great. Getting energy prices down is important. But, they're not as down as much as he's projecting. But the problem is you can't eat gasoline, right? Can't eat gasoline unless, of course, Kennedy proposed that as some sort of way to get rid of COVID, okay? And what I would say is that even though we all subscribe to our own set of facts these days, we do. The only thing is that still is a constant is that 2 + 2 still equals 4, for now, okay? And so, when you go to the grocery store and you get the bill, there's no partisanship on the bill. There's no partisanship on that bill. There's just prices. And so you can go to all the stadiums you want. You can fill all the stadiums you want. And you can talk about, this being a hoax all you want. But as long as people are paying double and triple for groceries and rent and health insurance and home insurance and transportation and car payments, it won't work, okay? And you're going to say, Jared, how do you know it won't work? We tried it. We tried it for a whole year during the election. The economy is great. The stock market is great. We tried to tell people how to feel, and it didn't work. In the weirdest plot twist ever, I can't believe Trump is copying your favorite president, Joe Biden. I feel like any moment, Trump's just going to be like, and Trumponomics is great. It's just wild. I feel like Howard Lutnick is about to come on television and talk about how crude today prices are coming down, right? And so, look, let me just say, this is why I believe in FISA reform, okay? And now I will yield to your question.
You almost started to answer for me, so I love you, man. You're a great guy, great congressman. But that doesn't have a damn thing to do with what we are talking about today.
I know, but 50 people already spoke and asked all the questions and comments.
The subject matter today is really, really important. I get it. I get the politics. I get the affordability.
No, well, affordability is probably slightly more important.
But this is people's personal freedom. Let me tell you, people died multiple times in many wars, right back to the Revolutionary War, so people could believe what they want to believe, say what they want to say, believe in a God.
Reclaiming my time quickly, and then I'll yield back. Listen, don't get me wrong, the Revolutionary War is very important, but I think most Americans care about what they're paying for goods today, rather than what happened during the Revolution.
The gentleman would yield again.
Yes, I will yield back.
They do. They also care about their personal freedom. They care if their daughter or son or brother or sister is being surveilled, if they're losing their freedom, if the judicial system is going out to hurt them because they believe something different. It's a big deal, and that matters. That's what we should be doing today.
Reclaiming my time. I know they do care about that, but if they can't pay their rent and they can't feed their family, the rest of it is less important. And so that's why I brought up affordability, because quite frankly, it's not a hoax, it's a real thing, just like FISA is. And, we're just not having hearings on that. And, and I'm still waiting for Pam Bondi to come back. So look, we got like a week left. Oh, the chairman's got something on that?
No, I
didn't know if you had an announcement. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
No, I was.
What unfolded in that moment was more than a procedural disagreement. It was a collision of two competing definitions of reality, played out in real time before the American public. Jared Moskowitz stepped into a hearing meant to address surveillance powers and redirected the room towards something far more visceral: the daily cost of living. He didn't whisper it. He didn't soften it. He called out what he described as the dismissal of rising costs as a hoax. And in doing so, he dragged the abstract language of politics back to the checkout line, back to the rent notice, back to the bills stacked on kitchen tables across the country. Moskowitz wasn't just speaking about numbers. He was speaking about lived experience, about the idea that language matters, and that telling people their financial pressure isn't real doesn't make it disappear. He mocked the choreography of talking points, the teleprompter-ready phrases that sound polished on stage but collapse under scrutiny in everyday life. When he said there's no partisanship on a grocery bill, it landed because it's true. Prices don't ask how you vote. Costs don't pause for political spin. They simply arrive every month without mercy and without ideology. Then came the pushback. Jeff Van Drew pulled the conversation back toward the stated purpose of the hearing: surveillance authority, personal liberty, constitutional protection. He reminded the room that freedom is not an abstract luxury, that the ability to speak, believe, and live without unjust monitoring was paid for through generations of sacrifice. His response wasn't casual, it was forceful. To him, the issue at hand wasn't political messaging, but the foundation of personal autonomy itself. And there it was. Two truths, colliding without fully canceling each other out. On one side, the argument that freedom means little if people feel trapped by the cost of simply existing. On the other, the warning that material pressure cannot justify eroding civil liberties. Moskowitz argued that when people can't afford rent, food, insurance, or transportation, lofty assurances about systems and reforms ring hollow. Van Drew countered that without liberty, no amount of economic relief can compensate for the loss of fundamental rights. This wasn't chaos, it was democracy in its rawest form. What made the exchange so revealing wasn't the sarcasm, or the interruptions, or even the raised voices. It was the fact that both men were speaking past each other, not because one was wrong, but because the system forces priorities into competition. In theory, a functioning government should be capable of addressing both affordability and freedom. In practice, Americans are repeatedly told they must choose which pain matters more. Moskowitz exposed the danger of political denial. When leaders insist conditions are improving while people feel the opposite, trust erodes. When officials rely on stock charts and macro indicators while households measure reality in receipts and balances, credibility fractures. His warning was simple: you cannot lecture people into feeling secure. You cannot persuade them that costs are imaginary when they face them daily. Van Drew exposed a different danger: that in moments of economic frustration, long-standing safeguards can be treated as secondary, that fear and pressure can be used, intentionally or not, to justify expanded power and reduced oversight. His insistence that personal freedom must remain central was not nostalgic, it was cautionary. Together, the exchange painted a stark picture of modern governance: a system struggling to speak honestly about hardship without weaponizing it, a political culture where messaging often replaces accountability, where leaders on all sides risk losing sight of the people they claim to represent by talking past their realities instead of confronting them. This moment mattered because it stripped away the rehearsed calm of committee hearings and revealed something closer to the truth: that Americans are tired of being told how to feel, tired of being assured that conditions are improving while their own experience suggests otherwise, and equally wary of being told that protections should be loosened without clear limits or transparency. The deeper question wasn't about FISA alone or affordability alone. It was about trust, about whether institutions are listening or merely responding, about whether leaders are willing to acknowledge discomfort without dismissing it and defend liberty without exploiting fear. In that room, two congressmen argued over what deserves urgency. Outside that room, millions of people live with both concerns simultaneously. They worry about privacy. They worry about cost. They worry about whether anyone in power truly understands the balance between the two. This is what moments like this reveal, not heroes or villains, but fractures. Fractures in communication, fractures in priorities, fractures in a system that too often frames complex realities as zero-sum debates. Democracy isn't clean, it's uncomfortable. It sounds like interruption and disagreement. It looks like arguments that don't resolve neatly by the end of a hearing. But it also depends on vigilance, on citizens paying attention not just to what is said, but to what is avoided, to who defines reality and who is forced to live in it. If affordability is dismissed, people disengage. If freedom is compromised, people lose more than money. The challenge is not choosing one over the other, but demanding leadership capable of confronting both without deception. That responsibility doesn't end when the gavel falls. It shifts to the public, to viewers who refuse to accept slogans in place of substance, to citizens who recognize that truth doesn't belong to one party and accountability doesn't expire after an election cycle. This is why moments like this matter, and why they must be watched, understood, and remembered. Support our work to expose the truth. Subscribe to Liberty Report USA.